From some of my last videos, I've realized that what most people learn from my games is the late game transitions and how you win games. So this is gonna be an example game, I think, that really well demonstrates how you turn a top 3 into a first place. If you're struggling with that, stick around. Now I'm playing flurgl. I'm not gonna go over his entire early game again. I think I've done like 2 videos on flurgl, so I'll leave the most recent one in the top right or in the description if you want to learn how to play flurgl, or just watch the gameplay. I think it kind of speaks for itself. Because yeah, we're just playing murlocs essentially. But yeah, the late game is, I think, a really important skill to have. Like, early game is important because, well, obviously without an early game you never make it anywhere, right? But early game you can high roll. Mid game is just all about scaling, and I think most people have that down. From what I see in the comments and what I've noticed is that people, as soon as they have direction, because I did an entire video on direction, they know how to, well, go with that build. Like, people know how to play murlocs when you have a brand, right? People know how to play dragons with the Caligos. People know what to do when you're pirates, right? Just spam pirates and Elizas. But how do you counter opponents? How do you actually turn that into a first place? And what are you looking for now? I think flurgl is a great example once again, because mainly you just go murlocs, right? You have a big board of stats and poison, and with brand you just scale up. But what people don't realize is that loses really hard to a lot of builds. Like Caligos dragons you don't really beat because they all have divine shields, and divine shields value trade you unless you have ghoul and play around it somehow, or you can still lose to other poison boards that have different tech like divine shields. Now I'm gonna show you and talk about some of the best tech cards, like what are you looking for on tier 6. Also, look at how strong we are here. We're dealing so much damage to so many people. We triple into a 5 drop. Life is looking good. So meanwhile we're just kind of chilling on flurgl. This is always again how I play flurgl. I'm just super consistent, staying on tier 2 an extra turn, cycling a bit on tier 3 for buffs, and then tripling into multiple 5s. We got the Sephin, we got a good board, so you can see this game going well, right? So once again, that's just what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cycle buffs and play murlocs in the background. And while that's happening, let's talk about some late game good cards that you want to pick up. First one, of course, is poison. If you have board spots where you don't know what to put, poison is always good because it can kill literally anything that it trades with. So either a Sephin, a Spore, a Maexna, all of those do wonders and are great. Another thing is just divine shields, whether it's Nadina if you have like a couple dragons or amalgadons, or Savjz hero, things like that are always great because you can then bump a shield and also gain shields in return on units that might need it, so they don't lose to a poison. Then there's also specific tech cards that you can look for, like a Zap, if you know Zap is going to be good against your opponent, like Ghoul if your opponent has shields and you don't, so that's also a great way to counter shields. And any other thing that you can think of, like a small taunt maybe if you're up against Scallywag pirates. And also, yeah, we're getting multiple 5s here. We still don't have a Bran, but we don't really care. You can play murlocs without Bran, although I'm gonna spoil it here. This triple might give us a very good 5 drop that might start with a B and end in N. Yes, it's Bran. Anyway, bad jokes aside, if you can't tell, I just woke up. Let's look at a comment or a question from Francisco Javier Sarmiento. I hope I pronounced it correctly. What do you do when you find multiple triples in a turn at rank 5? So I assume that's tier 5. Making all triples might make the board 4 minions, but you get 6 stars randomly. The 6 stars are hit or miss with a bold. And that is very true. Triples are not always correct. Like, as a murloc board, you very often don't really need 6 shops. Right now you do because there is Seafood Slinger, but it's really hard to judge. Like, if you're looking for 6 drops, go for it. If your pirate is good because you can hit multiple Elizas, you can still hit amalgadons, Seafood Slingers into amalgadons, things like that. But if you're playing something like, well, dragons has multiple good 6s as well. I think the most important question that you can ask yourself is there something specific I'm looking for at tier 6? You can see the tribes in the lobby. Like, maybe you can still hit once again Maexna or Zap, which can counter your opponents or is good late game. Or do you really not care about 6 shops? Then is it worth being down units? And then you should just ask yourself, am I stronger after this turn or not? Because if you end up taking triples and your board is weaker because, well, you go taller instead of wider, then it's not worth it, right? Now, I will say that most of the time taking 6s is good because a lot of 6 shops are great. You know, amalgadons never hurt, stuff like that. But yeah, in some rare cases, I guess you can pass up on them if you think it might just not work out. Like your board is just gonna end up too weak if you miss too hard. Then the risk is not worth taking. Anyway, hope this answered the question. But yeah, triples usually and sixes are pretty good. That's what I'm gonna end with. Anyway, so here we take a Mulligan instead of Seafood Slinger. Now I think most people would take Seafood Slinger here, right? Because well, we have a brand and we have a bunch of murlocs, so Seafood Slinger is amazing. But we gotta think about endgame. So this is where I'm starting to think about the endgame, playing on our tribe on the board to adapt a Mulligan, and we got rewarded. We got Poison, Divine Shield, on our Mulligan, and even Taunt. So this is where we start to think about turning this top 3 guaranteed into a first place. Like we guaranteed get top 3, right? We're so strong, we're really big. I don't really care about getting more buffs with Seafood Slinger and stuff like that. All I care about right now is knowing that I can guarantee a better placement. And Mulligans are the best way. Now there's no max, so we can't module it. So we just have to hit a Divine Shield on Mulligan and that's it. It's gonna get poison from the 7 anyway. We got lucky. Well, and we got poison already, but that doesn't really matter. So now, what is our next step? How do we improve this board, right? Like, how do we guarantee that we beat people? Like, we just killed the Sket and that we don't lose to the HysteriA, who might have Nadina Dragons and things like that. So, it's top 3. Well, HysteriA is not a problem anymore. But maybe a second Mulligan would be great. You could consider leveling for that specific reason. I'm still taking some buffs, but I feel like now is the time for Brand to come out. I know too many people get super attached to Brand, too attached to Brand, and it is quite a skill knowing when to give up on your 2-4 on the board that just doubles battle cries. And here you see me sell it because Selfless is, again, one card that we talked about. Putting a shield onto poison cards is just amazing, because this opponent has 2 Mulligans as well. Most good players in iLobbies will have Mulligans on the board by the end game. So you either have Mulligans yourself as well, or you find a good way to counter them. So that's why I also put this Murloc in. This Murloc is another poison card because of Savjz, so I can basically every turn just end on a Murloc and have another poison on the board if it doesn't get sniped. This guy got a Golden Eliza, also has Mike's now, so they could be pretty scary. I hope that I beat them here, or that they don't kill me, so at least I can play around him better next time. Dude, this hero power is so stupid, by the way. Can we talk about Sneed again? But yeah, if you don't know how to play Sneed, I think my last video talked about him, but this guy needs a nerf. Luckily we were able to beat him because of the pure stats that we had. Like our stats, our scaling really mattered, and now we're in a top 2 scenario, and I don't think stats are gonna matter against this guy because he's Murloc. So that's why I sold the Brand. I know that we just needed max stats against this last opponent and we need to kill him, so that's why I went all in. And against the Sneed, I mean, and now against this last opponent, he's just Murloc, so everything has poison, meaning my stats don't matter. Whether I have 100 HP or a 1 HP Murloc, they're gonna die to the same things, right? Now Baron is interesting, but not good enough for the single Selfless, because you sacrifice a poison for a 1/7 to just shield another poison, which is kind of like a net neutral, and if the Selfless lands on Baron, then you actually made your board weaker, so it's not really worth it. I just rolled down for a golden Selfless or more Selflesses. This guy, look, has the double max now, a reborn max now, and a bunch of poison, kind of like expected. Also sold his Brand. And again, maybe I should have leveled here, but Mulligan is such a risky play since we don't have the Brand anymore, and since, well, we only have 2 tribes realistically, it's hard to put 3 on the board. And we end up tying, so because of the tie, we know that it's all about teching. Like, we have a very equal board, it's all about who can outsmart the other, and Golden Selfless is gonna achieve that, so we're gonna now have a bit of an advantage, but they can still as well get advantages. They can also find a Selfless, they can also find Ghoul, they can reborn their other mics now. And what I'm looking for from the Selfless, I don't know, maybe high roll another Amalgadon. We did find Mixna or Nadina, but Nadina is like not guaranteed good. Mixna is, because you can still find Reborn as well, and a Reborn Mixna is better than any of our Murlocs on the board because it's technically 2 poisons instead of 1. So that's why I leveled. Maybe I find another Mixna or a Mulligan to add with the Reborns, and for damage output, because otherwise we could have to beat them 3 times, because Murlocs sometimes don't deal a lot of damage if like a 2-drop survives, and these fights are very close. So I leveled to maybe have some more damage output, and he didn't really change his board too much, meaning we have an advantage since we did triple our Selfless, so we should technically win by 1 unit this time, slightly ahead. Okay, now it's, again, we just gotta keep on improving our board. We did find Reborn, so that might be worth selling 2 Murlocs. because we can put any other murloc on the board again. It's gonna get poisoned from the stuff, and the other murloc we replace with a reborn Mike's now. So our plan kinda is working, and we keep on improving our win con. So once again, don't pick up these buffs. Don't get baited by scaling. It doesn't matter. Figure out what it is that you need to beat your opponent. I just pick up this murloc because it's another murloc on the board. I said any murloc is a poison technically, so that's why I bought the murloc, not for the buffs. But Baron might end up being better now because of golden selfless. Now with a normal selfless it's not worth it, but with golden it is, because if you do the math, instead of 2 shields you get 4, and then even if it lands on Baron you still get more value because you get a 3rd shield onto a poison, and the Baron can bump a shield as well. It's just a bumper. Maybe I should put it earlier here. Position might not be perfect. It could deal more damage. And yeah, we'll see how this goes now. But we improved our board a lot. We found the Baron, we found Reborn on the max. Now they also found a Divine Shield Amalgadon though that could get poison, and a Salvo, so they also improved their board. But I don't think they match what we did. It depends as well onto like the bumpers. Like if the Salvo gets to bump one of my shields, maybe we're in a little bit of trouble. But guess what? We got lucky. So it seems like we're gonna walk away with the W here if we are able to deal enough damage. And I think we definitely have enough damage. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this endgame talk is gonna help you out getting more first base as well, and knowing when to stop doing what you're doing and look for tech cards. Hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.